Hello everybody, my name is Marcus. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to go over securing your environment in regards to email. So the reason why having a secure email platform is because most of the time using a computer is relatively secure and safe, assuming that you are on a private network and no one has physical access to your computer, which is pretty much always going to be the case in a corporate environment. So, with that being said, typically the way an end user would be compromised is if they're browsing the web and they happen upon a malicious website, which could be mitigated with some good web browsing controls. However, when we're talking about email, the end user doesn't have to do anything to receive a malicious email. Simply having an email account makes them susceptible. So there are two types of end users, in my opinion. The first kind finds any reason to think that an email could be dangerous. They suspect every email of being dangerous. Maybe they fell for a phishing attack once and they never want to do it again, or they're just kind of computer savvy and just know better. Then the second type of user, they find any reason to click on an email. In their mind, they say, well, what if it's important? What if this document is real? What if this gift card is real? I can't miss out on free money. So that second type of user, we can't really just leave it up to them to decide if the email is legit or not. So we have to put our own controls in place in order to protect our environment, because all it takes is one user to fall for a trick and then it's over. So a solution that is pretty common, pretty standard, is an email gateway solution. So an email gateway essentially sits in between the outside and your email server. So in this little diagram that I have an outside user. Say they send an email, the email gets intercepted by the email gateway proxy, and then the email gateway processes the email based off of the policies and rules that you have set, and then forwards that email, if it passes all checks, to the email server. End user here finally receives the email. The same thing happens in reverse. So the end user from your environment sends out an email, goes to the email server, sends it to the email server, and then the email server sends that email to the gateway. The gateway will check based on whatever policies you have. Maybe the email gateway has some DLP policies. It'll prevent the user from accidentally sending certain things, or maybe the user is attempting to send unknowingly or knowingly a malicious email, and you don't want your environment to be responsible for infecting other users in the environment or other companies that you work with. So the email gateway protects in both directions. Now here I have an example of an email gateway, which is Proxmox, which is an open source platform. I have this installed on my server here. It doesn't actually do anything. I haven't configured it at all, but I do have it at least so I can look at all of its features. So the main thing I want to cover here excuse me, is the mail filter rules. So my camera. So here we have pretty common thing, block dangerous files. And you would build your rule sets. You can add your own custom rule sets, but there's some default ones here. So this one is to block dangerous files, and based off of these objects you can build your rule. So this one here is removing attachments and quarantining attachments based off of this criteria, which is dangerous content. And then if I go over to, this is a what object. So if I go over to what objects, and here's the dangerous content, and then you can see the rules. So JavaScript, executables, MS-DOS, DBS, I don't know what PIF is, never heard of that, SHS, SHB, so it blocks a lot of stuff based off of this criteria. Now, one thing that I do find interesting, moving away from Proxmox, that was just an example. Proxmox doesn't use, from what I understand, it does not have a sandboxing feature. So I have used Mimecast and Proofpoint in the past. And with Mimecast or Proofpoint, they are email gateway platforms. And when they intercept an email, if the email has an attachment, the attachment will get scanned. You can set it so that the email gets delivered without the attachment, and then the attachment will get scanned. And if it passes the scan in the sandbox, then it will send the attachment with the email after the fact. Or you can set it to it just holds the email until the scan is done. So those features are really nifty for protecting your environment. Proxmox does not have that, but it is an open source solution. So I mean, I'm not really mad at them. So I am going to go over to Microsoft, because most people probably have Office 365, and I'm going to use the developer environment that I have. It comes with some E5 licenses, and I can look at the Defender platform. So if I go to email, there's a bunch of features here. So what I really want to look at is first the policies and rules, and then I go to threat policies, and here we have your phishing rules, spam rules, malware rules, attachment rules. So 365 Defender for email does use a sandbox to test for safe attachments, which is very nice. And I'm going to go into anti-malware. And in a previous video, I used a executable payload through email. So if you have an email gateway platform or Microsoft Defender for email, all that stuff is kind of checked for. So for instance, this default rule that's just already here and it's already enabled, if I go and look at the file types that they have blocked already, there's 43 file types, and exe should be here and elf. So pretty standard stuff, pretty nice. Now, another key factor in protecting your email environment is training your users on how to detect phishing emails and phishing attacks. If they've never seen them before, they're gonna fall for them, especially if they're not very tech savvy and not up to date on scams. They'll fall for it almost every time. So the users need to be educated. All they know how to do is do their job. So it's up to the security team to push education. And 365, this must be new, because I didn't have this months ago, or at least I never noticed it. So they have attack simulation training, which Mimecast also has an awareness training. I don't remember if Proofpoint did or not. I know Mimecast does. I've used it. So what you like to do with these platforms is you want to do phishing simulations, which they have, and they should have templates. So I'm gonna act like I'm creating a simulation. So here we have credential harvest, which is pretty common attack, so I would pick that one. And then you can pick from their templates here. So what are we looking like? What looks good here? Reset password. Sounds common. So here in this payload, it says password for blah email expires today, marked for deletion if not reconfirmed today. Change or rather keep using same password. So you would pick this payload and then run the simulation, and it would send it to whoever you want it to go to. I would probably just do the entire environment. Typically, when you're doing this, I don't know if it's staggered. In Mimecast, it would stagger it out over the whole day. Because sending a simulation email to thousands of users all at once, that's insane. I wouldn't recommend. Hopefully 365's platform staggers it, but that's neither here nor there. And then the second thing that you want to do, besides the phishing simulations, is the actual awareness training, which you would send out. Sometimes it's quizzes or videos that demonstrate the attacks. So let's see what they got here. Use one of my fake users. Oh, all users. All right. So I'm going to add a training. If it'll load. Don't move my camera. And then we got a bunch of stuff here. OAuth consent grant. Pretty interesting. Smishing. Smishing is a good one because most of the time, depending on your environment, people are going to get smishing attacks through their personal cell phones. So we're not going to have any controls on personal devices unless you're requiring people to have MDM solutions on their phones or giving out company phones. But even still, when people put their personal phone numbers in their email signatures, a lot of the times that stuff gets that information gets sold, or I don't know how people get it, but they get it. I don't think they get it from LinkedIn. They get it from some social media, and then they cross-reference that data, figure out where you work, and then they'll text you pretending to be your CEO, and people fall for that. I don't understand how people fall for it, but they fall for it. So this would be a very good educational module to use to teach people about smishing, because they'll fall for it. And if you can alert them beforehand, maybe that'll save them some gift cards. The last piece I want to cover for the email security are the email authentication tools that we can use in our environment. So we got SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. So Sender Policy Framework is a text record that recipients can use to verify the allowed senders for your domain. And then the domain keys identified mail essentially uses keys, a private and public key. The private key is used to sign important parts of your message, and then the public key is posted in a text record so people can get your public key. And if you understand how asymmetric encryption works, they can use the public key to verify the signature to make sure it's legit. And then DMARC essentially uses the first two, SPF and TKIM, and says, hey, depending on how you have it configured, it says, hey, if you receive an email from my domain and it doesn't conform, it doesn't meet the requirements of my SPF and DKIM, take this action. So that action could be reject the email, and then also you can say, if you reject the email, send a report, which is the reporting part, to this email address. and then you can receive information about people trying to spoof your environment, or maybe they are your emails, they just fail for some reason. So that's what those three things are for. Very important. I won't go too deep into them. I can't configure them in my email environment because it's a test environment, and SPF and DKIM are already configured. DMARC I can mess with, but I will not do that here. But other than that, if you have your email gateway, all of your rules properly configured, and your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC configured, you'll be good to go. You'll be pretty protected. So, thank you very much. I'll see you next time.